Hello and welcome back to another week of Sambo iRacing. We're back in the Ligier JS P320 LMP3 at Miami Grand Prix for yet another track guide. Now, if you're going to run this in the Open Setup Falcon Series and you want to race the exact setup being driven by me in this track guide, you can go to our website, sambosetups.com, or you can go to our Patreon page. There are links to both in the description. Now, as always, we're going to do a hot lap, then a breakdown lap, then we will be back in the cockpit one final time, the driving line on. Any questions, do let me know in the comments. And yes, the brake bias is shown in the wheel cam, so you don't even need to ask me. Right, let's go. So here we are, smashing it down the main straight, and we're going to start braking for turn one. As we go under the second bridge, we're going to get on the brakes briefly up to about 80%, going to trail it off all the way down to first gear, getting smoothly back on the gas. A little lift as we go through two, another little lift as we go through turn three, and now we are back on the gas. Now, we've run this very low to the ground, so we're trying to stay off the curbs. At the 50, we start our turn in lightly on the brakes, little blip of gas, and then on the brakes again. And we're going to give ourselves a nice wide entry into this corner. So we're lightly on the brakes, drop it down to second, little blip of gas. We're just trying to get rotated and staying off the curbs again. Now, running it low means that we are getting better straight line speed and far better grip, but it does mean I am staying off the curbs as best as possible. Trying to keep the track as short as possible here until we see the outside of this bridge on the right hand side. Now we're going to go to it. Once we get there, we're going to brake relatively hard, initially up to about 90%, but we're going to trail that off as the grip decreases down to first gear. We're going to try and hug it tight in first, lightly on the brakes. Now we can see the exit. We go back on the gas up to second. Once we get to the outside, on the brakes down to first. And again, just trying to keep off that curb. Over to the right hand side, really important corner because we've got the long straight coming up. Just kicked out a little bit there, but it's absolutely fine. So this is where it pays dividend, being slightly lower to the ground. Right, we're going to start braking just after the 150, coming into turn 17, and again, on the brakes, holding it around 80%, trail it off down to first, smoothly back on the gas so we don't get the oversteer on exit. And now we can really cut this final corner without getting the off track. Here we are, and over and across the line we go in a 151.5. Now make sure you park up nice and safely. I actually ended up in the sun there, so I just moved forward into the shade so as not to damage the engine. Right, we have the breakdown lap coming up next. Right, here we are on the breakdown lap. I'll try and fly through it as fast as possible. So for turn one, we're going to start braking. In my head, it's at that bridge, but you can see I'm already on 2%. But yeah, it's just before that bridge. We get briefly up to about 80%. We trail it off all the way down to first, start picking back up on the apex, but I don't reach 100% until I'm here. And now we're in second gear. We do a little lift to get through, and now we're going to do a second lift. So we short shift up to third before doing that lift. And then we're just smoothly bringing it back up to 100%. So as we come into turn four, we're going to go past that 50 board. And we're going to start our turn in. And as soon as we start that turn in, come off the gas, lightly on the brakes, only up to about 15%, trail that off until we get, this is the only time I think that I actually jump over the curb, and we start picking back up on the gas, but I only get up to about 55% before I am back on the brakes once I'm mid-track. Now, as you can see, when I went on the brakes, I've got my steering absolutely straight, down to fourth, and I trail that off. Now I start getting back on the gas. Now there's two choices of doing this. You can see an awful lot of people will aim more left than I did, so they try and cut this corner. But what I wanted to do, because this guy is a bit of a handful as we go through this next bend, I want to be as far over to the right hand side as I can, because that allows me to get back on the gas that little bit sooner. So you start doing a lift once you're back over to mid corner, and I'm just holding the brakes around 20-25%, and I'm trying to give myself the widest possible angle so that when I drop it down into second now, I can give it a little blip of gas. I know that isn't actually going to allow me to rotate, so I just come off a little bit. Now I know that I've got the angle that I need, so I can go up to 100% and have this nice exit again without jumping my right hand two tires over the curbing. I will say, I do think this is one of the best laps I've ever driven. It felt absolutely hooked up. And it was quite lucky because I'd just been doing 2 hours around here in the F4. So I did feel like I knew the track quite well by then. Right, as we come up to turn 11, we are going to start braking again just before we get to this footbridge up ahead. And again, you can see now, whilst I'm still on 100%, I'm actually on 1% brake just because I'm starting to rest my foot on there. As we go through it, again, I hold it briefly up to about 90%, but then a classic trail off down to second gear. I ignore that apex. It's not that I missed it by a meter. I just ignored it. Get up to 100%, and now once we get to here, we come off the gas and we're just holding the brakes around 3 or 4%. Now we get back on the gas, and as soon as I can see that exit, I turn my wheel back straight and go up to 100%, up to second, and I'm going to start braking as soon as I'm halfway between here and the outside of the track. There we go. And again, we're just holding the brakes around 35%. We want to really cut this corner without hitting the left-hand wall. Little blip of gas, and now we're doing a lift, and then we get back on the gas. I leave it in first before I get on the brakes, and then we're only on the brakes at about 40%, and then we start picking back up on the gas at the apex. And as I say, it may be a bit slippy on exit. Right, our final bit of braking is going to be just after this 150 board on the right-hand side. So as you can see, it's disappeared. I immediately get on the brakes and I hold it around 75%, 80%, down to first gear, classic trail off, and now smoothly back on the gas because you don't want to hit that outside wall. And that shall conclude the breakdown lap of the Ligier JS P320 LMP3 at Miami GP. One final version coming up next with the driving light on without me talking, so enjoy.